I Go by Emily, aged 35, and for the past decade, I've dedicated myself to homemaking. My spouse, Michael, a doctor, and I have been leading a reasonably content life despite not having children. However, an unexpected event disrupted our 10-year marital journey. One evening, as Michael arrived home late, he dropped a bombshell. "This is the end for us, Emily," he declared abruptly. Bewildered, I questioned him. "What do you mean by the end? What's suddenly happening?" "I've decided to marry my mistress, so we're getting divorced today," he declared nonchalantly. "Marry your mistress? What are you talking about?" "I've made up my mind. I'm leaving you and marrying her. Besides, we didn't marry for love, so you probably don't care, right?" Michael explained callously. Indeed, ours wasn't a love match. Michael's parents had orchestrated our union, and we barely knew each other before tying the knot hastily. The only commonality we shared was our original last name, a coincidence that seemed like fate during the rush of surrounding weddings. As we navigated through our wedding and marriage, I never fathomed that we would part ways after a decade. Despite lacking the foundation of a love marriage, we had lived together for 10 years. Now Michael wanted to marry someone else. It wasn't a love marriage, but we've lived together for 10 years, and now you suddenly want to marry your mistress. When did you start betraying me? I confronted him, grappling with the revelation. It's not betrayal. I met her about a year ago. She's a nurse who joined our hospital. She's charming, unlike you, always caring for me. And it's natural that I was drawn to her, Michael explained, justifying his decision. Natural. Are you serious? I responded, stunned by his revelation. Yes, I've always been serious. These 10 years living with you have been true hell. I was honestly sick and tired of supporting such a boring woman. But that ends today, he asserted coldly. How can you talk like that? It's the truth. You're a homemaker who produces nothing, while she's an active nurse. Ask any man in the country, they'd all choose her over you. Do you think a high-achieving doctor like me needs someone like you? Michael continued, his words cutting through me. After a brief pause, I mustered the strength to respond, "Fine, let's divorce." I never thought I'd be married to someone who could say such things so calmly. "We can discuss alimony and property division later with a lawyer. I'll sign the divorce papers and send them later. Until then, I'll go back to my parents' house." However, Michael interrupted, revealing a shocking truth. "No need for discussions. We don't even need a divorce paper." Perplexed, I questioned him. "What do you mean? We can't separate without it. If we don't divorce, you can't remarry." "You're so naive. It's pathetic. The truth is, I never submitted our marriage registration. We're not a married couple, just cohabitants. So there's no divorce, no alimony, no property division. You thought you'd get my money in the divorce, but you won't get a penny," Michael disclosed. Shocked by this revelation, I confronted him. "Not submitted? Wait, are you joking? We've been living as a married couple for 10 years. It's impossible that you didn't submit it." "Normally, yes. That's why I made that rule at the beginning. If you went to the office, everything would be ruined. When we got married, we made some rules. I, as a homemaker, would handle all the household chores. I was on an allowance, and part-time work was prohibited. Michael would handle all governmental and official matters," I recounted. "Why would you do such a thing?" I questioned. "Because I was about to be forced into a marriage with someone I didn't love. It's not like I was going to submit it easily. I was saving marriage for someone I was destined to be with," Michael explained. "Why didn't you refuse the marriage proposal in the first place?" I demanded. "I couldn't refuse. My parents are stubborn and wouldn't listen. I wanted a housekeeper. I'm a busy doctor and can't often tend to household chores. So, I decided to marry you as a housekeeper. It was a good deal for you too, right? You could eat well and have a roof over your head without working. You seemed desperate to get married too. What, you were probably feeling pressured because your friends were getting married, right? Even though we weren't actually married, you were seen as the woman who married a doctor. This 10-year relationship was a win-win for both of us. And it ends today. You should be grateful for the good times you had. Now you have to live on your own without relying on others, Michael declared, concluding our tumultuous chapter. I can't believe this. Oh, and one more thing. Don't tell my parents about this. If you do anything unnecessary, you know what will happen to your father, right? My father, who runs a medical equipment sales company, has a contract with the hospital where he works. It was through my marriage to him that this connection was made. If I told my in-laws, he's implying that he'd sever the contract as a threat. In other words, he's warning me not to take any action. It's your fault for being deceived. How pitiful to be thrown out with nothing, he said, laughing. But the one who would be thrown out without knowing anything was actually him. I couldn't help but burst into laughter. What's so funny all of a sudden? I can't believe you became a doctor with that kind of knowledge, he questioned. I knew all along about your mistress and that you didn't submit our marriage registration, I replied calmly. That's impossible, he insisted. That's why I've been preparing, waiting for the day you'd bring it up yourself. In fact, I had suspected his infidelity for the past 6 months. But I didn't have enough evidence to confront him. So I hired a private investigator to look into his affair. Ma'am, there are 2 things I need to tell you. The first is that your husband is indeed having an affair. We got evidence of him entering a hotel with a nurse from his workplace. And the second is from their conversations. There's a possibility that you two are not legally married. Possibility of not being legally married? What does that mean? I asked, shocked. I overheard your husband and his mistress at a cafe. He said they didn't need to worry about alimony or property division since they never submitted a marriage registration, the investigator revealed. I can't believe it. We've been living as a married couple for 10 years. I don't know why he didn't submit the marriage registration. That's why he never let me handle any official procedures, I realized. Yeah, that seems to be the case. I can't believe this. How could this happen? I explained. It's rare to hear about not submitting a marriage registration for 10 years, but it's not unheard of. This is too much. Am I just supposed to accept this? If we were never married from the start, there's nothing I can do, I lamented. Not necessarily. What do you mean? The investigator asked. Let's make him pay for deceiving you for 10 years. First, we need to prepare without him noticing, I declared. And so, I began to prepare with the investigator to punish my husband. So what if you knew we were never married from the start? So it doesn't matter what I do with other women. I don't need to take any responsibility, he said, oblivious to the storm that was about to hit him. I pitied myself for not knowing anything. But it seems you were the one truly pitiful. What do you mean? We're considered to be in a common law relationship on paper. So what? You might not know, but you can actually claim alimony and divide property in a common law relationship. What he didn't know was that registering as a de facto marriage would backfire on him. You can make claims in a common law relationship. It's not well known, but yes, you can. Of course, there are some conditions, but looking at your case, it seems you meet them. What are these conditions? A common law relationship is established based on 2 criteria. First, both parties must have the intention to marry. If it's just living together, that's cohabitation. Mutual intent to marry is key. For instance, if you had a wedding ceremony or were recognized as a couple by others, it can be acknowledged. We've had a wedding ceremony, and our parents and friends know us as a couple. Then the first criterion is met. The second is living as if married. This includes sharing household life for over 3 years. You've been living together as a couple for over 10 years, and as a homemaker, you obviously shared the household finances. This is recognized as a marital relationship. So that means if you can provide proof of what we discussed, you can claim alimony and divide property. I'm not an expert in this area, so I'll introduce you to a lawyer. You can work with them to bring him down. After consulting with the lawyer, I was told that I could indeed claim alimony and property division from my husband. So I'm going to demand alimony and property division from you, I informed my husband, who turned pale. His confidence, which had looked down on me just a moment ago, was gone. But even if you can claim alimony and property division, you're just an unemployed woman. Do you plan to rely on your parents after being kicked out? He scoffed. Didn't I say I was preparing? I've already found a job starting next month. I've also got my eye on a new place. Don't worry about me, I responded confidently. What he thought, that a clueless homemaker would be helpless, had backfired. I'll make sure to discuss this with your parents, just so you know. Do you not care what happens to your father if they want to break the contract? He challenged. Let them. Sure, you were the link to the hospital, but the contract continued because of my father and his company's efforts. Whether or not they keep the contract is up to them. Let's see if they'll break a contract just because the doctor's wife of 10 years was a lie. Try saying that to my father and me. We won't be affected if the contract is broken over this. It only shows the depth of their trust. We'll just find another hospital to partner with, I asserted. Saying this, I took out my phone. You're not calling your parents, are you? He questioned. That's exactly what I'm doing. Our parents think we're still married. It's only natural to inform them if this relationship is ending, I stated. To my surprise, my husband began to apologize. Please let me talk to them. Don't call, he pleaded. Why? You know how strict my parents are. If they find out about this, I'm done, he explained. What does that have to do with me? You're asking me not to tell the truth because your parents are strict. Are you kidding? You could have refused the marriage from the start if you didn't intend to marry. After 10 years of a selfish marriage, you're afraid of your parents finding out. I can't accept such a convenient story, I retorted. But I can't accept your story. I'll make sure to tell both your parents and mine, I declared. And so, I called both sets of parents. All four were shocked upon hearing my story, and a meeting was promptly arranged at our house. I've heard everything over the phone. Is it true that you pretended to be married for 10 years without submitting a marriage registration? Speak up, you foolish son, my father scolded. It's true. I didn't submit it. Why would you do such a thing? Didn't he think about how Emily would feel? My mother added. I had no choice. No choice, you say? How can you even say that? It's actually your fault, Dad and Mom. I didn't want to get married, yet you started looking for a bride on your own, saying it was time, he explained. I got married because you arranged meetings and tried to force a marriage on me. You're the one who agreed to the marriage, aren't you? I had to agree. If I had refused, you would have made a fuss about it, so I decided to get married. If you were resolved to marry, why didn't you submit the marriage registration? I read about a man on the internet who was in the same situation. He didn't want to marry but had to because of his parents. He lived a married life without submitting the registration, then revealed the truth when he found someone he truly loved. That's appalling. And what happened to that guy in the end, he asked. He's now married to the person he loves and has a real marriage. So I too will marry my girlfriend and have a real marriage. Then my parents, who had been silent until now, spoke up after hearing his reasoning. A real marriage, huh? Sure, you might not have had a love marriage, but do you remember what you said at the wedding? We will never forget to care for each other and build a home full of smiles. What did those words mean to you? What were we shown? We sent our daughter to you hoping for her happiness, but you deceived her for 10 years without submitting a marriage registration. Did you build a home full of smiles? Now you're leaving her for another woman. Can someone who acts without a shred of care, even if they change partners, truly have a real marriage? Well, he began, but my father-in-law interrupted. I was happy you married our daughter, not just because you were a doctor. I thought she could build a happy home with someone as sincere as you, but it seems we were mistaken and deceived. And you threatened our daughter. If she told us about this, you'd cut off the contract with our company. Seriously. If you're going to threaten our daughter, we'll cut off the contract ourselves. Be warned, we will tell the truth when asked. Why? If you do that, there will be rumors at the hospital. Well, yes, but that's the result of your own actions. You were the one who threatened us with cutting off the contract. My husband was in complete panic at this unexpected turn of events. Please wait. This is getting out of hand. Let's just talk, he pleaded. At that moment, my father-in-law grabbed him by the collar, furious. Don't mess with us. We didn't raise you to be such a scoundrel. What were you thinking, father? Please stop. By not submitting the marriage registration, you might have thought you were doing yourself a favor. But because of your selfish actions, Emily was strung along for 10 years. What were you thinking, causing such trouble to others? The living room fell silent. My husband, faced with my father-in-law's words, had nothing more to say. Emily and your parents, I'm truly sorry for the trouble caused by this idiot, my father-in-law said. No, you parents shouldn't apologize. It's not your fault. However, it's partly our responsibility as parents for letting him act this way. For now, we'll take him home and make sure he doesn't continue his reckless behavior. We'll deal with the aftermath properly. We're very sorry for all this. And with that, my husband was taken away by his parents back to his childhood home. You've been through a lot. For now, you should come back home and rest. We'll think about what to do next later. You don't need to worry about anything right now, my parents said, thinking I was completely exhausted and deceived. They spoke to me with such kindness. Thank you, but I won't go back home yet. I still have things I need to do. I declined their offer and stayed in my own home. What I had to do was prepare for the final settlement with my now ex-husband. Gathering evidence for our common law relationship, I was getting ready to claim alimony and divide our assets. A few weeks later, a meeting with a lawyer was arranged. However, even if I agree to alimony, why should I divide my property? She's been a homemaker for 10 years, never working a day. All the furniture, clothes, food. I paid for everything. Now you're telling me to hand over the money I worked hard for, the furniture I bought. He ranted, unable to accept that his money would be shared with me. Yes, that's correct. The money you earned and the furniture are subject to property division, the lawyer explained. Why does it have to be like that? He protested. Who did the housework? While you were working, who cooked meals with the groceries you bought? That's irrelevant now. No, it's very relevant. A homemaker is entitled to property division because housework and child care have economic value. Speaking as a human, not just a lawyer, do you think housework is something anyone can do, that it's just expected of a homemaker? The reason you could live freely is because of her support. Don't get that wrong. And this situation is a result of your actions, yet you have the audacity to be selfish, the lawyer continued. What'd you say? Never mind. Anyway, she's entitled to half of the assets for property division. That's how it is. Dan, regarding alimony, we intend to claim $100,000 from you. $100,000? Why so much for a relationship that wasn't even a marriage? It's precisely because you weren't married. Normally, alimony claims in common law relationships range from $10,000 to $40,000. However, in your case, you pretended to be married for 10 years and selfishly tried to kick her out when you found someone else. The amount is determined by the severity and duration of your actions. But still, you may think 10 years is just a short time, but it's longer than you realize. During that time, she devoted herself to you, believing you were a married couple. You have no right to complain after betraying her. A perfect rebuttal left him speechless, and he reluctantly agreed to my demands. Then I also sent a notice of claim for alimony to his mistress. I knew who and where she was, thanks to the investigator, as she was a nurse working at the same hospital. The mistress, having heard from him that there was no possibility of alimony or property division, must have been utterly shocked by the contents of the claim. Wait a minute, this isn't what you told me. What you want? She confronted him at the hospital with the notice I had sent. I told you not to talk to me at the hospital. I got this from your wife. You said there wouldn't be any alimony because we weren't married. What's this all about? I later learned that, in a panic after being served with the alimony claim from me, she confronted him at the hospital with the notice I had sent. Okay. Let's talk about this later, not here. There are too many people around. We'll both be in trouble if this turns into a rumor. I don't care about that. I can't pay this kind of alimony. You said it was okay, so you should pay. Pay it for me. I won't pay a penny. You were the one who wanted this relationship. You said I was the only one for you, that you wanted to marry me. Hey, quiet down. Everyone can hear us. Just so you know, I'm not in the wrong here. If you want to make amends with your wife, do it yourself. Tell her I don't owe her a penny, that you'll take care of everything. This exchange led to the revelation of their affair to the entire hospital. It quickly became the talk of the place, and then the final blow was my father's request to the hospital. I apologize, but we would like to terminate our contract at the end of next month. The hospital, aware of the rumors, asked my father, "Excuse me for asking, but is the reason for canceling the contract related to Dr. Michael's affair? It's already become a rumor." Yes, a nurse presumed to be involved caused quite a scene. I never imagined he had been pretending to be married for 10 years without submitting a marriage registration. I never expected it to turn out like this. You mean he never submitted the registration? Weren't you aware that he hadn't submitted the marriage registration? All we knew was that he, being married, had an affair. What do you mean he didn't submit the marriage registration? With my father's request, it was revealed that he had been deceiving me for 10 years by not submitting the marriage registration. This news spread among the other nurses. Dr. Michael deceived his wife for 10 years without submitting a marriage registration, and he had an affair with a nurse. How low? How could he do that? Can someone really not notice for 10 years? Apparently, Emily's maiden name was the same, and he managed all the official paperwork. That's scary. The rumors spread not only among hospital staff, but also to patients, and both Michael and his mistress received cold stares. Unable to endure, they soon resigned from the hospital. As my father told me, "Did you manage to get the alimony?" "Yes, I received payments from both him and his mistress." She refused to pay until the end, claiming she was deceived, but the lawyer made it clear her argument wouldn't hold, and she reluctantly agreed to pay. That's good. What about you, Dad? Did the contract get canceled after all? No, that's off the table. He resigned, and since our company is trusted, the hospital asked us not to cancel the contract. We couldn't cancel it after they asked like that. That's a relief. Then I started a new life in a new place and was living happily. About a year and a half later, my ex-husband contacted me. "Is it true you got remarried?" I had married a man I met at work, and somehow he had found out. I wondered whose number this was, going through the trouble of changing your number just to contact me. Just answer my question. Yes, I got married. You betrayed me. Betray. We were never legally married, so I didn't think it would matter to you. Right? That's a different matter indeed. Things are different now. We're completely separated, so my marriage has nothing to do with you. Is that why you contacted me? After I said this, he seemed at a loss for words. Then he taunted. Of course, you're still unmarried, since you probably haven't submitted a marriage registration again. You're that kind of woman. But things weren't as he imagined. Unfortunately for you, my husband isn't the kind of person to do such terrible things. He knows all about your story, so to ensure I wouldn't feel anxious, we went to the office together to submit the registration. Sadly for you, things aren't as you thought. I can somewhat understand your wish for me to be unhappy, considering your own misery, but sorry you're happily married. I told him this and hung up the phone. What kind of life he leads now, I don't know, but unless he changes his selfish nature, it's unlikely he'll ever find happiness.